The time is 1:17 p.m. We are back on the record.
Okay. I'm going to enter into the deposition exhibit 69. This is the notice of taking web deposition in lieu of in-person of person most knowledgeable and or qualified of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC. Mr. Milio, are you the person most knowledgeable in the category of examination to testify today on the business relationship with Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC registered in New Mexico?
Yes.
What documents did you rely on in preparing to be the person most knowledgeable to testify today in that capacity?
Well, I reviewed the documents that you sent, and I reviewed some other documents that we have submitted in the case.
And the second category, are you the person most knowledgeable to testify today in the category of membership interest, assets, and goodwill of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC between 2014 to 2020?
Yes.
Okay, and what documents did you rely on in preparing to testify in that capacity today?
Various documents that we've submitted and that you've submitted.
Okay. And are you the person most knowledgeable to testify as the person most knowledgeable, sorry, are you the person most knowledgeable to testify in the category of the transfer of membership interest in 2017 today?
Yes.
And what documents did you rely on in being prepared to testify in that capacity today?
Well, some of the documents we've already looked at, but the title certificates and other documents related to the transfer of interest.
Okay, are there any other documents that are related to the transfer of interest other than documents that have been produced in discovery to date?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And are you the person most knowledgeable to testify in the category of authorized signers of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC between 2017 to 2020 today?
Yes.
Okay, and what documents did you rely on in being prepared to testify in that capacity?
Various documents that we have submitted during the course of the 2 years of this case.
And are you the person most knowledgeable to testify in the category of statements of information for Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC today?
Yes.
And what documents did you rely on in being prepared to testify in that capacity today?
Documents that we've submitted and some of the documents that you have submitted to the case.
Okay. Did you review the statements of information for Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC?
I have reviewed them.
And are you the person most knowledgeable to testify in the category of employee agreements on or around September 2017 today?
Yes.
And what documents did you rely on in preparing to testify in that capacity?
We have some employee agreements and things like that.
Okay. And are you the person most knowledgeable to testify on the category of profit and loss of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC between 2015 to September 30th, 2017 today?
Yes.
And what documents did you rely on to be prepared to testify in that capacity?
Different accounting statements that we did across the months during that time frame, and documents submitted to this for this procedure.
All right. Back to the Bates stamped document LLC PMK 0313-2. In your capacity as the PMK for the LLC today, what was the intent of the title certificate?
Well,
Actually, it's vague.
I can tell you what the title certificate states.
You can start there.
Yeah. I'm happy to read it. Date issuance of membership interest as an amendment to the Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC
So
operating
you need to
agreement.
slow down when you're reading, please.
Okay.
Date of issuance of the what?
Date issuance.
I'd like to object. I mean, listen, our time is valuable, and it's not proper to just have the witness read an entire page into the record. Why don't you ask the question or have the witness read it to himself if he needs to refresh his recollection?
It's up to you, Jim, how you want to answer the question.
Well, he answered your question. And then you asked another question, which was to read it.
That's not accurate representation of the record. And I don't need to remind you of it, just stop your speaking objections and please allow the deponent to answer the question the way he wants to answer the question.
Well, I don't know. If I
Yeah, but
can-
I'm not going to permit you to engage in harassing conduct. And I want you to just ask a question, not ask the witness to read a page-long document into the record for no reason. That's just burning our time.
Okay, what you're doing is burning our time and making an improper record. So Mr. Milio offered to read the title certificate into the record. I did not ask him to. If that's how he wants to answer the question, I'm approving that. If he wants to answer the question a different way, that's okay too. I am entitled to an answer.
Yeah, he answered the question that the document says what it says. So why don't you ask him a question?
That's you putting that answer into that. So anyway, Mr. Milio, how would you like to answer? And Ken, I will have to suspend the deposition if there's too many speaking objections as it is.
Honestly, I'm ready for a suspension because you're the one who's engaging in conduct that is burdensome and oppressive and improper. So ask your question, get it reread by the court reporter, but just ask a question. Don't ask the witness to read a lengthy document without a question.
Can the court reporter repeat the question, please?
Well, the last question that's material was, you can start there. Do you want the one before?
Yes.
Question. Okay, all right, back to the Bates stamp document LLC PMK 0313-2. In your capacity as the PMK for the LLC today, what was the intent of the title certificate?
Objection, vague and confusing. You can answer it if you understand.
Well, as the PMK of the LLC, I don't know how an LLC as an entity has intent. The managing members have intent, but I don't know how the LLC has an intent.
So what were the managing members of the LLC's intent in this issuance of membership interest as an amendment to the Jeanette Edelweiss LLC operating agreement?
Objection, outside the scope, calls for speculation, asked and answered as to the prior depositions.
I'm not going to answer as a managing member participant in this case. I've already been deposed that way.
Okay, so on the record, you want to show that you're refusing to answer that question?
I
Well,
don't know
no,
how
the
to
record
assess-
speaks
I'm
for
sorry,
itself.
Ken.
You asked what the intent was of third-party managers, and he's the PMK of the company. So I don't think that's fair to ask him what the intent was of somebody else. Ask him about the corporation.
Okay, what was the corporation's intent in the title certificate?
Objection, asked and answered. He told you entities don't have an intent. The intention was, anyway, I won't, his answer speaks for itself. He answered that.
I did answer it.
Okay, just to make the record clear, I'm going to assume you're answering the question in the PMK capacity unless you tell me otherwise today. What you testified in your personal or individual capacity is not relevant to the deposition that we're conducting today. You just testified that you're the person most knowledgeable in the category in regards to the transfer of membership interest in 2017. I am entitled to an answer of the PMK testimony of the opinion of what the LLC's intent in this title certificate is. If
You're arguing with the witness. Objection,
just putting on the
argumentative,
record-
badgering.
I'm sorry,
On
one
the
at a time.
Thank you.
Objection, argumentative, badgering, improper speaking objections, asked and answered.
So just to have a clear record, should we need to motion to compel Mr. Milio, are you refusing to answer the question today?
My answer
Objection.
was,
He
I
has
don't
not.
know.
I'm sorry, one at a time, please.
Just
What's
please
the
for the witness
objection,
to
Mr.
wait for me.
Sorry.
That grossly misstates the witness's testimony. Now you can answer, Mr. Milio.
I said, I don't believe a corporation can have an intent the way you describe it. The people behind the corporation can have an intent. And that's what I'm not prepared to answer because you already deposed me on this topic.
Okay, I'm still entitled to your opinion as the PMK for the LLC in regards to what the intent of the managing members of the LLC had when this title certificate was executed on September 2017.
What was the date? Because you got cut out.
September 30th, 2017.
Objection. Okay, not entitled to opinion testimony from a PMK. A PMK under the code testifies to matters that the PMK has knowledge of or can reasonably obtain from a review. So you're not entitled to opinion testimony.
Okay, does the PMK have knowledge of what the intent of its members at the time of September 30th, 2017 for what this title certificate was for?
Objection, vague and confusing. If you can try to answer it. But also
this
object secondary evidence rule.
To me, this document appears to create an agreement between two parties for the sale of the restaurant.
As the PMK for the LLC, what did the 100% membership interest entitle EEG to?
I believe it's stated in the
Object.
document.
Yeah, objection. The document speaks for itself. It calls for a legal conclusion, also calls for speculation.
I'm entitled to an answer. The document speaks for itself is not a proper objection.
I disagree with you. It is a proper objection. Secondary evidence rule.
Certainly not in a deposition. So as the PMK for the LLC, what did the membership interest entitle EEG to is my question.
Objection. It's vague, confusing, and unintelligible. Secondary evidence rule. Calls for legal conclusion.
It includes 100% membership interest and all of its assets and goodwill of the company known as Jeanette's Edelweiss, a restaurant in Newbury Park. And I prior in this very deposition mentioned what some of those assets were.
Okay. Who had the rights to the revenues of the restaurant on October 1st, 2017, and then after?
Objection to the form of the question. It's vague and confusing. Calls for legal conclusion.
My understanding was the ownership changed hands on October 1st of 2017, after which all of the income was supposed to go to the buyer of the restaurant, which is EG and or you.
And just to be clear, was it 100% of Jim Millio's membership interest or 100% of Jim and Jeanette's membership interest?
Was what? Objection, vague and confusing.
Did the title certificate intend to transfer 100% of Jim Millio's membership interest or 100% of Jim and Jeanette's membership interest?
The title certificate states that 100% membership interest, 100% membership interest of the LLC.
Okay, so there's no other interest in the LLC other than the 100% that's being transferred on September 30th, 2017?
To the best of my knowledge, that is correct.
Okay. How come, and in your PMK capacity, do you have knowledge why Jim and Jeanette did not sign over their membership interest in their individual capacities?
Objection, assumes facts not in evidence. It's vague and confusing. Calls for speculation.
I don't understand the question.
So down below, it's the signed on behalf of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC by Jim Millio. Is that correct?
Yes,
Objection, document speaks for itself.
And as the PMK for the LLC, do you know why Jim and Jeanette did not sign over their membership interest in their individual capacities?
Objection, vague, confusing, and unintelligible. Calls for speculation. Assumes facts not in evidence.
I consider 100% membership interest to be exactly that, 100%.
Okay. Did Jim Millio have 50% membership interest in the LLC on September 30th, 2017?
Objection calls for a legal conclusion.
Yes,
And is it correct that Jeanette had 50% membership interest in the LLC on September 30th, 2017?
yes,
And does the LLC have knowledge that membership interest is personal property?
Objection calls for legal conclusion, vague and confusing.
I will tell you that 100% membership interest of this restaurant was sold.
Okay. And Jeanette did not sign the title certificate, correct?
I believe it's only signed by me.
Okay. And do you know why Jeanette did not sign the title certificate as the PMK for the LLC?
I agreed to sign it. And again, now I feel like you're crossing into, deposing me again. I agreed to sign this document.
Okay. And did Jim or Jeanette have any rights on behalf of the LLC after the title certificate was executed on September 30th, 2017?
Objection. That calls for a legal conclusion. That's not a PMK question. I'm not going to allow the witness to give legal opinions. Question also lacks foundation.
As the PMK, it is my opinion based on this. I don't even know if I can give my opinion.
Hold on. I'm going to object. I don't want you to speculate and to
Okay.
offer opinions.
And you're
And
obstructing the deposition and
okay, you're conducting an improper deposition with improper questions.
do I,
So
we can, if you're going to instruct your not the LLC client, but your client in his individual capacity not to answer,
Well, let me be clear. I don't have an LLC client. I sued this LLC. I represent Jim Millio and Jeanette Burling, who were ordered by the court to appear as a PMK during the period when they owned it. You are the one who is the PMK for the period 2017 to present. So this whole thing is backwards. You've already conducted the factual discovery of the individuals. So we're complying, but you need to keep it within the bounds that are appropriate. So asking him to offer an opinion about something Jim Millio did, that's not PMK stuff. But ask him about the business records. Ask him, did the company agree? Ask him things that I think there is territory here where you could ask appropriate questions, and we are willing and able, and we've been here all day so far waiting for that.
Can the court reporter please read back the last question that's pending an answer?
Do you want the answer as well?
Yes.
This is subject to objection, which I'm not going to read unless you want me to. Question. Okay, and did Jim or Jeanette have any rights on behalf of the LLC after the title certificate was executed on September 30th, 2017? Subject to objection. Answer. As the PMK, it is my opinion based on, I don't know if I can give my opinion, and that's where Mr. Inber interjected.
So if the witness has personal knowledge, and he can try to answer your question.
The document states that 100% membership interest in all of its assets and goodwill of the company, known as Jeanette's Edelweiss, a restaurant in Newbury Park, are transferred to the Environmental Education Group. That's what it states.
Okay, so is it logical to conclude that Jim and Jeanette were no longer managing members of the LLC when they transferred their membership interest on September 30th, 2017?
The way you're phrasing this, I don't objection to the form of the question.
Do you understand the question, Mr. Millio?
Please repeat the question.
Is it logical to conclude that Jim and Jeanette were no longer managing members on behalf of the LLC on September 30th, 2017, when they transferred 100% membership interest?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but it is my understanding, based on my reading of this document, that we were transferring all the membership interests to EEG, and 100% means 100%.
Great. Are there any amendments to the LLC operating agreement that go along with this transaction on September 30th, 2017?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. How did the LLC transfer the assets to Environmental Education Group per the title certificate?
Objection misstates the evidence and assumes facts not in evidence.
Well, for example, we transferred the bank accounts of the restaurant to EEG's control. As an example of the things that we did to give EEG control of all the operations of the restaurant and the income of the restaurant.
Is there anything else that you did to transfer the assets of the restaurant to
Well,
EEG?
objection to the form of the question. The PMK witness didn't do anything.
Does the PMK of the LLC have any knowledge as to how the LLC transferred its assets to EEG per the title certificate?
Can
Other
you be
than the
more
bank
specific?
account.
Can you be more specific of what you're thinking about? I don't know what you mean.
Did the as the PMK for the LLC, were there any other assets that were transferred to EEG per the title certificate other than the bank accounts?
There may have been some, but part of the transfer of all the assets and acquiring 100% membership interest of the LLC meant that EEG had many of the assets by acquiring them via this title certificate.
Okay. So as the PMK for the LLC, did the managing members at the time, Jim and Jeanette, not intend to cooperate with transferring the ABC license to EEG when they entered into the title certificate on September 30th, 2017?
Objection to the form of the question. It's argumentative. It assumes facts, not an evidence. It conflates the role of this witness as an individual recipient and as the PMK. How can a PMK testify to what Jim Milio's intent was? That's where you're going beyond the bounds here.
You're asking me about my own intent. You had that right when you deposed me, and I answered your questions when you deposed me as Jim Milio.
The LLC was aware of the ABC rules. Isn't that true?
Objection assumes facts, not an evidence.
Again, I don't know an LLC can be aware. The managing members can be aware.
Yeah, so the managing members of the LLC were operating the LLC prior to October 1st, 2017, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And before September 30th, 2017, and entering the title certificate, the managing members acknowledged the ABC rules, correct?
Objection, argumentative, outside the scope. Not a PM. You're asking the PMK to acknowledge something that other people did?
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that question.
I mean, you could ask if the LLC acknowledged the rules, because he's the PMK for the LLC. But I don't think you can ask him what Jeanette Milio did.
Okay. I appreciate that. I'll take it. Did the LLC acknowledge the rules of the ABC before September 30th, 2017? And if you need me to show you a document, I am happy to do that.
Yeah, well, I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah, please show me a document.
Okay. I'd like to enter this as Exhibit 70, Deposition Exhibit 70. It is the acknowledgement of ABC law, rules, and regulations. It was signed on January 20th, 2015 on behalf of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC, which was the applicant for the ABC license. Do you have knowledge of whose signature that is?
That appears to be my signature.
So do you agree that the LLC acknowledged the ABC rules prior to September 30th, 2017?
Yes, according to this document, yes.
Okay. And based on this document, there is an ABC 608 quick summary of selected laws for retail licensees that's included, that you were interviewed and instructed by the Office of the Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control. that you were given these rules? And in these rules, was the LLC aware of the rule on 60840? And I'd like to enter this into Deposition Exhibit 71, where it says undisclosed ownership, changes in ownership. The ABC license must reflect the true ownership of the licensed business. There can be no hidden owners or silent partners. Licensees must report any and all ownership changes to the ABC. As the PMK for the LLC, are you aware that the LLC reported the ownership change properly from the transaction on September 30th, 2017?
Objection to the form of the question. It's vague and confusing as to what properly is supposed to mean. Calls for legal conclusion.
There was the beginning of a transfer process to change the person-to-person ownership. It was begun after the signing of the title certificate.
Did that process complete?
To my knowledge, that process did not fully complete.
And do you have knowledge as the PMK for the LLC why that process did not complete?
No, objection, overbroad in scope and vague, calls for speculation.
I believe there were issues with EEG and yourself regarding elements of the title certificate that were not complied with. And so that was put on hold.
Okay. Can you tell me which element of the title certificate was not complied with?
Yes. Number one is, it's in paragraph 2. It says they, and they means Jim Milio and Jeanette B. Milio, are to be removed as personal guarantors on the lease by and between Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC.
I'm sorry, wait, you're speeding up again. Jeanette B. Milia, and then what?
They are to be removed as personal guarantors on the lease by and between Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC and Newberry Oaks Marketplace LLC, dated 12/30/2014. Environmental Education Group and its assignee shall contact Newberry Oaks Marketplace and obtain confirmation by no later than October 15th that Jim and Jeanette B. Milio are to be taken off the lease with no further liability. The security deposit paid by Jim and Jeanette Burling shall be reimbursed to Jim and Jeanette Milio by October 15th. Those two items were not complied with.
As the PMK for the LLC, was it the intent of the LLC to suspend the transfer should those conditions not be fulfilled by EEG?
Again, I don't think I can speak to intent of an LLC.
Let's go to the withdrawal and just put this on the record for a second. I'm reading from Bait Stamped LLC PMK 0613/2. As the PMK for the LLC, can you identify this document?
This is a fax.
Okay, and the fax was dated on 11/14/2017, is that correct?
Yes.
And the fax is submitting an application withdrawal, which is Bait Stamped LLC PMK 0623/2. Is that correct that this is an application withdrawal?
Yes,
And can you tell me, as the PMK for the LLC, who submitted this application withdrawal?
it was submitted by Jim Millio.
Okay. And as the PMK for the LLC, I'm going to read from LLC slash PMK 0633/2, whereby it states that the license will be returned to the transferors at that time. Who are the transferors that the license is returned to?
Objection calls for speculation. This isn't the PMK from ABC.
As the PMK for the LLC, do you have knowledge as to who the license was returned to at that time?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence and misstates the evidence. Again, you need to ask the witness things that are within the PMK scope here.
Please stop the speaking objections. It's really
Well,
an
stop.
don't
Yeah,
want
you
to.
show the witness a document from
sorry, one at a
ABC,
time, please.
and he asks the witness an opinion about what a letter from the Alcohol Beverage Control Center means.
Okay, but
That's not PMK stuff.
you're coaching the witness here.
No,
And
I'm not, Liel.
entitled
Stop with your commentary and ask an appropriate question. Do what other lawyers do. Ask a better question.
as the PMK for the LLC, do you know who the license was returned to upon the application withdrawal?
Objection.
May I see the
Assumes
rest of the
facts not in
document?
evidence.
I'm sorry, what was the objection?
Assumes facts not in evidence.
Thank you. And your answer, Mr. Millio?
I wanted to see the rest of the document if I could. I
This
can only
is
see this one page.
the letter, and then this is the withdrawal. And let me know if you need to see the facts. And
Well, but are those separate those are different documents? It's your record's not clear.
I think
are.
they are different documents. Are they all the one thing? I just want to know.
well, it's just for the sake of a virtual deposition and trying to make it easier in entering exhibits. And it might not be the easiest way, but this is the way I'm doing it. And so this is its own document with the facts cover sheet. And the other document was a letter from the ABC after the withdrawal was submitted. So
Right, but the letter was sent to you, Miss Arad, not to. Can you pull up the letter, please?
yes, the letter was sent to me.
Yeah.
And-
So you're asking the PMK about a letter that wasn't sent to the LLC.
Okay, I'm asking the PMK for the LLC if he knows. If he knows who the license was then returned to upon the application withdrawal. I'm asking if he knows that. If he doesn't
Objection
know
calls for speculation. It calls for a legal conclusion, and it's outside the scope, unfortunately.
I can make it easier for you.
Just
Mr.
noticing,
Yeah, all you're doing is harassing my client because you conducted a deposition of ABC. So you're not meaningfully trying to discover facts or evidence. You're just harassing us.
I'm actually
So
just
why don't you?
clean record.
So please move on.
Okay, hold on. I'm not going to just move on. You're not going to push me around. So just please stop and do what you're here to do, which is just object. And you're not even the attorney for the LLC, so it's a little over the top. Okay, so Mr. Millio, right here,
wait.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
can you tell me whose signature this is on the transferor's signature line?
It looks like the signature of Jim Millio.
And is there also another signature here on the signature line?
Yes, it looks like a signature of Jeanette Burling.
Okay, and it's under the transferor's signature. Is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay, so would it be logical to conclude that the license was returned to the transferor at that time?
Objection. You don't get to ask a PMK if there are logical conclusions
Yeah,
that the PMK is going to reach. Sorry. You get to ask about knowledge.
I note that it says in this letter here that the contractual obligations were not met by the applicant. That seems to be highlighted by you.
Mhm.
But this is not my document. This is not a document of the LLC, so I don't know how to answer this one.
Actually, it is. This is the transferor is Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC. Isn't that true?
Well, it's an ABC document, is it not?
Yes, but would this be considered a business record of the LLC that you filled out on November 14th, 2017, when you faxed this?
Well, again,
Well, objection,
hold on, objection. Please.
Stop
You're
it.
not
Stop
asking
it.
me.
You're off the record. You're off the record.
I'm
You
not
can-
going to let you lie to
you're
this
not-
witness.
Oh,
I'm not going to let you lie to the witness, Liel. This is a document produced by ABC, and you know it.
Again, you're asking me as Jim Millio, not as the PMK, and I'm not going to answer as Jim Millio.
Okay, I am entitled to your answer as the PMK for the LLC today. If we do need to motion to compel some answers, that'll be fine. I'm going to go back to this fax because this fax was regarding Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC. Is that true?
The fax says regarding Jeanette's Edelweiss.
Okay. Is Jeanette's Edelweiss different than Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC?
Would you stop harassing my client?
I'm just
He's
asking.
already testified that this fax was sent. Why don't you ask a question that is not harassing him, that is not badgering the witness,
Oh, wait, sorry.
that is not.
On the record, I'm sorry, Elena, did you stop the
I
record?
sure hope so that we're on the record.
You are on the record because once I can get one voice at a time, I resume the record. But what is on the record when several people are speaking at once is not great. So there we go. The last thing I hear from Mr. Imber is he's already testified that this fax was sent. Why didn't you ask a question that is not harassing him, that is not badgering the witness? Whatever else was there is lost.
So where do we have to start from?
Well,
Did I get the
Why don't you just ask a question? I mean, none of this stuff is
if you were
controverted in
doing
this
it?
case.
sorry, here we go again. No matter what is being said, I can't hear if two people are speaking at once. What is I just read what I got of Mr. Inber's last objection. Is there something else that you would like me to, that needs to be said on the record? Please repeat yourself, Mr. Ingber. If not, please proceed.
I'm waiting for a question.
Okay, so Mr. Millio, you submitted this application withdrawal when you faxed it to Kathy on November 14th, 2017. Isn't that true?
I think it's asked and answered objection.
I can tell you that the document appears accurate and was signed.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's good. All right. Let's go to this one. All right. Was this statement of information filed on, actually, I'm missing one. Let's go to this one first. Was this, I'll enter this into evidence, just the Bait Stamp LLC PMK 0593/2. This is a statement of information for Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC. Was this statement of information filed on November 8th, 2017?
That's what the
Mr. Ryan,
document
what?
appears to say.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted you, Mr. Millio. What did you say?
That's what the document appears to say.
Okay, Mr. Ryan, are you entering this as, do you want it marked as an exhibit?
No, I'm sorry, I don't. I just refer to it as the bait stamp. It's fine. Are the statements contained true?
I don't know.
Who would know?
I'm not sure who would know, but I don't know.
So you did say earlier that you were the person most knowledgeable about the statements of information on that category. And,
Yes, but I don't know 100% about everything, Leo.
okay. What is Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC New Mexico that's listed as, was Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC New Mexico a manager or a member of Jeanette's Edelweiss?
Objection. Objection. Compound. Assumes facts not in evidence.
As the person most knowledgeable for the LLC, is Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC New Mexico a manager or a member of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC in Delaware on November 8th, 2017?
My understanding is that Jeanette's LLC New Mexico is a different entity.
Why is it listed on the statement of information on November 8th, 2017?
I don't know.
Do you know who would know?
Not sure at this time. Who else would know?
The statement of information that is a certified record of the California Secretary of State suggests that Jeanette Bierling is the managing member that submitted this statement of information. Do you believe that Jeanette Bierling would know?
I think you should ask her.
Okay.
I think she already did.
Did
Yeah, that's right.
did you as the PMK in getting prepared for this deposition talk to Jeanette Bierling about the statements of information that she filed on behalf of the LLC?
Objection. Assumes facts and evidence that Jeanette Burling filed this document. You haven't established that.
And again, I think you're trying to get me to answer as Jim Millio, and I'm not going to discuss my wife.
I'm not. I'm actually assuming.
That's what it is. That's what it sounds like. Sounds exactly like that.
Well, it can get a little confusing possibly like this transaction, but you know, we're going to have to deal with it the way we're dealing with it and break it down. We're in a PMK deposition right now, and you have
Stop
a duty.
lecturing us. Just ask a question
Okay,
that's capable of being answered. You'll get an answer. You ask a question that's not capable of being answered, you'll get an answer you don't like.
Okay. So before we move forward, I'm just going to, on the record, because we will motion to compel in the future if we have to. Did you discuss the statements of information with Jeanette Bierling in preparing for this deposition that state that she filed them?
I'm going to object on the basis of attorney-client privilege. There's an attorney-client privilege between Jim, Jeanette, and myself, and our discussions in preparation for this deposition are privileged. So on that basis, I instruct you not to answer. You can ask what he knows. You can, that would maybe be fair game, but as phrased, you have violated the attorney-client privilege.
So what do you know about the statement of information that was filed on November 8th, 2017?
Objection vague, but you can answer.
I only know what I can see here in it.
Okay. This one's LLC PMK 0643/2. It's a statement of information filed on November 18th, 2017. You might be more familiar with this person that apparently signed this statement of information, Jim Millio. Do you have any?
You know, if you are going to communicate with my client in such a disrespectful manner,
Okay.
then I'm going to adjourn this deposition.
Okay, anyway.
So stop it with the sarcastic, inappropriate tone and be professional and respectful to my client. Thank you.
So was this statement of information filed on behalf of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC on November 18th, 2017?
That's what the document says.
Okay. And are the statements contained true?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you have knowledge if Mr. Milio filed the statement of information?
Again, we're in a weird
Again.
place, but
I'm
because
sorry, hold on. Mr. Ingber, did you say something? I couldn't understand.
That I said, again, objection outside the scope, but I'll let the witness try to answer.
I don't know.
Okay.
I just want to mention, Mr. Ingber, the reason I'm asking you to repeat yourself so much, partly because I cannot see the window with your image in it. So when you start speaking, I have no warning of that. Does that make
Okay,
sense? So
of
it's not
course,
your
of
fault.
course. And I know how difficult your job is, and I appreciate how hard you're working, and so thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, back on the record.
Okay. We're gonna go back a little here. On October 2nd, 2017, or let me establish first that the LLC, Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC, was in a lease with Newberry Oaks Marketplace before September 30th, 2017, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And do you have knowledge that the managing members of the LLC before September 30th, 2017 knew the landlord's policy when they want to transfer interest or sell their restaurant business?
You do the same objectionable questions again and again and again and again. So he's not going to testify what was in the mind of the managers. That's not his role.
I'm asking.
And you deposed him. So no, I mean please rephrase your question. Please rephrase your question.
My questions are phrased fine, and they're asking for his knowledge in his capacity as PMK, which can have knowledge about the managing members or may not. So my questions are proper. So I'd appreciate.
Well, no. I mean, he might have knowledge about actions taken, but to ask him what was in the mind of Jim Milio as the manager, that's beyond no way. I'm not going to permit that. So
Okay.
ask a proper question. I mean, all of this is clearly just to harass us. You have yet to ask a single question that would help you learn a new fact. All you're doing, so I kind of don't understand what you're doing here, but go for it.
Do you have knowledge as the PMK for the LLC that this was the first time that the landlord heard about the transaction on September 30th, 2017?
Objection calls for speculation as to what the landlord knew and when the landlord knew it. Outside the scope.
You're not being instructed not to answer.
I don't know.
Okay, we determined early on that one of the assets of the LLC was the lease rights. So, did the LLC intend to transfer lease rights to EEG?
Same objection about the LLC having an intent, but I'll let you answer. Maybe you could rephrase to resolve my objection.
Again,
but
I don't know how an LLC has intent as an entity.
Did the managing members of the LLC intend to give EEG the lease rights?
objection
I can't
calls
answer
for
that.
a legal conclusion.
What was your answer, Mr. Milio?
I cannot answer that question. She's trying to get me to answer as Jim Milio, a managing member, and I will not do that. I've already been deposed by Uliel.
So are you refusing to answer this question?
I'm not going to answer it as Jim Milio, and I cannot answer it as the PMK because I cannot tell you the intent of an LLC.
I asked if you had knowledge now. I didn't ask for the intent.
You asked about, you mentioned intent, as I recall. We could read the question back.
Yeah, I thought the question was what knowledge about what the landlord knew. And again, you're not the PMK on that topic. Just maybe ask a clean question, Leal, and we can get through this.
Okay, first I'm just gonna enter as a bait stamp because I didn't yet and identify this document as LLC PMK 0363 /2. This is an email from Jeanette's Edelweiss on behalf of Jeanette on October 2nd, 2017 at 11:35 a.m. to Aaron Schrodinger, who worked for Newberry Oaks Marketplace. Is that correct?
It appears to be an email to Aaron.
Okay. And here is Jeanette, who is writing on behalf of the Jeanette's Edelweiss team, telling Aaron that the membership interest were transfers to Liella Rod and Kent Caruso.
That's what it states.
As the person most knowledgeable for the LLC, is that true?
Objection, vague and confusing, totally improper question. Is what true?
That the transferred membership interest for the LLC were transferred to Liel Arad and Kent Caruso today on October 2nd, 2017.
Again, that objection calls for a legal conclusion. The document speaks for itself. I mean, are you asking, is this a true and correct copy of a document that was sent? Maybe that would be fair, but I don't understand your question.
Is this a correct document that was sent, Mr. Melio?
It appears to be an email. I presume it was sent. Maybe it was someone's in a draft file, but it appears like an email that was sent.
Okay. All right. And this one was identifying as LLC PMK 0353/2. This was from Aaron Schrodinger, an email sent on October 2nd, 2017 at 1:27 p.m., whereby she's telling Jeanette and Jim, who were Jim and Jeanette in legal possession of the lease prior to October 1st, 2017?
Objection, vague and confusing.
I don't know if Jim and Jeanette were. The Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC was on the lease.
Okay. Did Jim and Jeanette continue to be involved in the lease after October 1st, 2017?
Objection. That's again, the question is vague, confusing, and unintelligible. It's also not a PMK question. You're ask about the LLC. Don't ask about what Jim and Jeanette did.
So Aaron notifies Jeanette in this email that without first obtaining landlord's written consent, tenant, which is Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC, shall not either voluntarily or by operation of law assign, mortgage, hypothecate, or encumber this lease or any interest in this lease, permit the use of the premises by any person or persons, franchises, affiliated.
We can read it. Why don't you ask a question? It's all.
I'm sorry, one at a time, please.
Yeah.
We're going to be here for 5 days if you just read into the record. I mean, we're all familiar with this email. We've gone through 7 depositions over it. Just ask a question.
Okay. Is the LLC aware that any transfer shall constitute an assignment for the purposes of the lease?
Objection calls for legal conclusion. It's also vague.
can't base an answer on any one email because there are also phone calls involved with the landlord and other emails about pretty much any issue that happened with the landlord, and usually involve multiple calls and multiple emails. So I can't base it on one email.
So in this email, she's taking an article out of the lease agreement. Isn't that true?
She's
Is your
also giving
question,
us,
did
I'm sorry, one at a
the
time.
landlord objection? It's vague and confusing. I don't understand your question. And you're wasting our time asking a question like that. The document speaks for itself.
Mr. Miller, if you said something, I did not understand it.
no, forget it.
As the PMK for the LLC, do you have knowledge that the managing members prior to October 1st, 2017 had knowledge of the Article 16 of the lease agreement when they entered into the title certificate?
Again, I'm not going to talk about the managing members, of which I was one, because you already deposed me on this topic.
So are you on the record refusing to answer this question? That's fine, and we'll move on.
Not a
I'm saying you're
refusal. He
not
gave you an
asking me as a
answer.
PMK. You're not asking me as a PMK. You're asking me as a managing member.
No, I'm asking you as a
You
PMK
said,
if you have
"Was I
knowledge.
aware that the
I'm sorry, I
managing
can't
members?"
understand
You're
either
saying, am I
one.
aware that the managing members, and the only way I could be aware of a managing member is by being a managing member.
That's not true.
Oh, listen, you've deposed Jim and Jeanette previously. So here he is a spokesperson for the LLC. So you ask him those kinds of questions.
Yeah, I'm entitled to understand if the LLC, let me just do that, was the LLC, did the LLC have knowledge of the lease they were in with Newberry Oaks Marketplace?
The
Objection.
LLC,
Objection. It's vague and confusing. You can answer, Mr. Milian.
yeah, the LLC had an 80-page contract with the landlord, and over the course of years had many back and forths with the landlord over different provisions and elements of that contract.
This is a Bait Stamped LLC PMK 0373/2. This is an email from Jeanette's Edelweiss.com from Jeanette to Liella Rod, to Esther Folmar, to Kyle Schulte on 10/10/2017. As the PMK for the LLC, are you aware of this email?
Well, I'm aware of it because I'm
Aware of
looking at
this
it
email.
now.
I'm sorry.
I was just trying to understand the question.
I see the email before me. It appears to be an email.
Okay. And was the lawyer that Jeanette seems to have been consulting with a lawyer for the LLC?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. And this is LLC PMK 0383/2. It's entitled Business Licenses for Jeanette's Edelweiss. It's sent from Jeanette Edelweiss to Liella Rod, CC to Jim Millio, and to Jeanette. It's on the same day, 10/10/2017 at 16:29.
I'm sorry. You need to slow down, please. I'm not following what you're saying so quickly. To Liella Rod, CC Jim Milio, and who?
And Jeanette.
Go ahead, please proceed.
As the PMK for the LLC, are you aware of this email being sent on October 10th, 2017?
Again, I'm going to object because he wasn't the PMK in 2017, and he's aware because he's staring at it on his screen. So I just don't understand the question.
It does look like an email that was sent.
Okay. Do you have knowledge as the PMK for the LLC of what unnecessary bureaucratic hoops Jeanette was trying to avoid?
I don't. I do note that she wanted to try to work things out in good faith, something that's a foreign concept to you.
And this is LLC PMK 0393/2. As a PMK for the LLC, can you identify this document?
This appears to be a title certificate.
As the PMK for the LLC, do you know what the intent is of the second title certificate?
I'm going to object to the form of the question. It calls for a legal conclusion, and it's vague and confusing as to what intent is supposed to mean. You can answer it if you understand what she means by that.
Well, again, I don't want to get into intent. I'd rather you rephrase the question some other way.
Do you remember when this document, or as the PMK for the LLC, do you know when this second title certificate was signed?
I don't know the exact date.
Okay, was it after October 1st, 2017?
I don't know for sure.
Do we want to go through the evidence around this second title certificate to refresh your memory?
Well, I know that there was.
Well,
more than
no, I
one.
mean, you know, hold on, I'm going to object because again, you're just harassing the witness. You know when it was signed. You lived through it. So why don't you just ask a question?
As the person most knowledgeable for the LLC, do you agree that it was signed on October 11th, 2017?
Objection, argumentative.
I don't know.
Okay, so we can go through the information around it. Hold on, let's stop share for a second.
Right, but showing him a bunch of emails isn't going to change the PMK's answer. He's just going to say, yeah, those are all emails that have been exchanged in discovery in this case. None of this is controversial.
Okay, well, Mr. Milio, you testified that you're the person most knowledgeable of the transfer of membership interest. So do you have the knowledge of the second title certificate, or do you need to go back and get more prepared to answer the questions regarding the second title certificate?
Again, I object to the way you're badgering the witness. He's prepared. Being the person most knowledgeable doesn't mean having all knowledge on everything at all times. So ask him a question, and if he knows the answer, it's within his personal knowledge, or if that information was reasonably available per the code, he will answer it. You've asked if he knew when the second title certificate was signed. He said he doesn't know. Okay, so move on.
Mr. Milio, as the PMK for the LLC, do you know of who would know when the second title certificate was signed?
I don't know for sure because there was more than one title certificate signed. In fact, I think there were a total of 3. There's definitely more than 2. So I would have to look at the chain to make sure I could give you an accurate date.
Okay, so do we need to take a break?
Confirm that all those things in the chain are accurate. And look.
I don't know what kind of game you're playing with this, but we're not taking a break. We're not doing research. You know when you signed the title certificates. So just ask a substantive question.
Well, I'm trying to get the right record with the PMK of the LLC that would know.
Mhm.
So first of all,
You clearly don't understand what you're doing with this PMK deposition because the witness is not required to have carnal knowledge of every fact in the world.
no, but there's very few categories and very specific categories. And so they do have a duty to be prepared. And if they don't have the knowledge, they need to get it.
You're incorrect in your statement of the law. And let's not forget that Mr. Milio has been in this case since day one. There is no one on our side who has greater knowledge than Mr. Milio. That doesn't mean he ever will have knowledge of every fact. And this whole PMK business is a joke, if you ask me, because this is a company that you own, not us. So he was a managing member during this period of time. He's here in good faith to answer what he knows. We don't have the corporate records, you do. They've all been exchanged in discovery. So again, I think you are just engaging in a fishing expedition and an effort to harass Mr. Milio, and it's not right. We're here. Ask a PMK question. But if you don't like the fact that he doesn't know when a document was signed 5 years ago, too bad.
Okay, if you're going to continue to lay down speaking objections, giving you a final warning, because I will have to suspend this deposition. And
I'm okay with that. You have been engaging in speaking objections all day long.
also, Mr. Ingber, before we move on, you brought up a good point that I would be the PMK. I offered to
Feel free to depose yourself. I mean, this whole thing is ridiculous. I don't know what to say to you.
For this category of the transfer of membership interest, do you believe that Liel Arad would have more knowledge than you
On what?
on the transfer of membership interest?
I would not
Stop
dare
it.
to get
I am not going to allow you to harass my client. I am reaching a point where I'm the one who's going to suspend this deposition. I have been incredibly patient, and you have engaged in a game today where you are not in good faith trying to get discoverable information. So why don't you just do that?
Okay, let the record show that the deponent is non-responsive in regards to the second title certificate, and we'll save this for motion to compel. I'm going to go.
He's not non-responsive. He
true.
said he
That's
didn't
not
know.
true.
You stop lying on
not
the
true.
record.
I'm sorry, one at a time, please. He said he doesn't know. Was that you said?
Well,
Yes, I
no,
don't
that's
know.
not what.
Okay,
That's
then
what the
please.
witness said.
That's the problem with two people speaking at once. So what I have from you, Mr. Ingber, is he's not non-responsive. He said something, but the rest was lost.
What I said was Miss Arad is misstating the witness's response. The witness answered the question.
Okay, but the last question on the record was if Liel had more knowledge than him. And so it wasn't about when he didn't know the date. It was
Liel
about
have more knowledge than him
about
about what
transfer of membership
during what period of time.
on or
You're
around.
the one
I'm
who
sorry.
went to court asking us to appear as a PMK. We oppose that. The court graciously allowed you to conduct this deposition. So we're here. But
Okay.
stop abusing my client.
Because you're eating up my deposition transcript.
You have burned all day.
Hold on, I want to get to
you have yet to ask a real question.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. I can't make a record like this.
I'm going to move on to a couple documents, and we're going to state on the record that this is not finalized in this category of the transfer of membership interest because the deponent is not cooperating with answering it unless you want to go back and answer these questions.
That's not true.
You please stop lying on the record. The witness answered your questions. You have another question, you can ask it. But you cannot make a false record like that.
Okay, let me clarify then before we move on this. So you don't know, as the PMK for the LLC, when this second title certificate was executed. Do you know if this second title certificate was executed after the first title certificate?
I can't say for certain.
How would you be certain? Is there a way that you could get certain about the second title certificate?
This is the problem. You're arguing with the witness.
I'm just asking a question.
Well, The question is argumentative.
The question is, what would we have to do to know? This seems like this would be very important.
Listen, counsel, witnesses are not required to have photographic memories. So you put a document that's 5 years old in front of a PMK and that's undated, and you ask, when was it signed? The witness said, I'm not sure. And that's as good as it's going to get for you.
Do you know who would know when this was signed?
Well, there are a lot of ways we could all know which date it was signed. But the question is, does the witness sitting here at this moment have that personal knowledge? It's ridiculous.
Okay, we're going to suspend this deposition, and I'm going to motion to compel, and we will seek to enjoin Ken in not committing these speaking objections and obstructing this deposition.
You know, you are just being incredibly unfair, Ms. Arad.
Well,
What question do you want answered? I mean, we have spent all day here, and you seem to get frustrated when the witness says, I don't know a date. So show him a document that has a date, but you can't ask him to go do research in the middle of a deposition, especially for a document that you signed. You know when it was signed.
Jim Millio testified that he is the person most knowledgeable in regards to the transfer of membership interest in 2017.
Right. So ask some questions about that.
Okay. So what was the intent to transfer? Was the LLC's intent to transfer the membership interest to Liel?
Objection calls for legal conclusion, and it's vague and confusing.
Again, I don't, this intent of LLC thing is very, does not make sense to me.
Did the LLC transfer the membership interest to Liel?
At some point, it was transferred to Liel.
Okay. And do you have knowledge why EEG wouldn't transfer its interest to Liel?
I don't
Objection
recall.
calls for speculation and assumes facts not in evidence.
I don't recall.
Okay. All right. LLC PMK 0403/2. This is a email entitled Membership Transfer Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC from Jeanette to Philomena, CC'd Liel, Jamilio, Jeanette on 10/18/2017 at 15, or that would be 3:31 p.m. Jeanette is telling Philomena that Liel's application was incorrect, and she told me she called Annabelle to withdraw it. As the PMK for the LLC, are you aware of what this email is in regards to?
Well, the BOE is the Board of Equalization.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a follow-up question?
Oh, I thought he was going to answer something else. As the person most knowledgeable for the LLC, were you aware that Environmental Education Group filed for a seller's permit for Jeanette's Edelweiss restaurant on October 1st, 2017?
Again,
not
I
aware of
don't think the PMK was aware of anything in 2017.
Okay,
So do you mean today?
Are you speaking objecting? Do we have to stop this again?
I just want you to ask a proper question. I'm trying to help you because you ask questions that are incapable of response. The PMK didn't exist in 2017.
And you don't have to be my teacher, okay?
I know, but I have to defend my witness.
Okay, but the LLC
So
is...
just try again. Just ask it again.
As the person most knowledgeable in regards to the transfer of membership interest, were you aware that Environmental Education Group had filed for its own seller's permit in anticipation of the transaction on October 1st, 2017.
Same objection, vague and confusing.
Well, I'm not the PMK for EEG, so I wouldn't know exactly when and how that was done.
Okay. That's fine. All right, as the PMK for the LLC, or let me first enter this in, LLC PMK 0413/2. This is email called Secretary of State Update Confirmation from Jeanette to Liel Jamilio Jeanette on 10/24/2017 at 11:48 p.m.
I'm sorry. I know you're reading and you're not trying to convey it to me confusedly, but it's confusing because all the words are running together.
Okay,
Please, when you're reading, you need to slow down. None of this makes sense to me. Okay, so here we go. It's an email called Secretary of State Update Confirmation from Jeanette to Liel and somebody else.
Jamilio Jeanette, dated on 10/24/2017 at 11:48. Jeanette sends Liel an email where she says, I just updated this already, so there won't be any issues with BOE, etc. As the PMK for the LLC, are you aware of any documents that provide consent for Jeanette to update the statement of information?
Objection, vague, confusing, and unintelligible.
I don't know.
Okay. As this is LLC PMK 0433/2. This is a certified copy of a transcript of a phone recording. I can play the phone recording if we need to, or as stipulated in a previous deposition, we can just read, and I can ask a couple questions regarding this. Are you accepting, Mr. Ingber?
I'm not quite sure what you're asking, but what I would just suggest, because again, we've had so many depositions and seen these documents together many times, you just ask the question.
Okay. All right. So here in the voicemail that's transcribed, it states that the plan with Michael, are you, as the PMK of the LLC, do you know who Michael is?
I don't know necessarily who that's referring to.
Okay. The plan with Michael is that officially we would unwind the transaction, so there is no transaction. Do you know why we would need to unwind the transaction so there is no transaction?
Objection, vague and confusing.
I was not the PMK then, so I don't know how I would know as PMK what this happened, what was going on.
So as the PMK for the LLC, was the transaction not unwound?
Objection, it's vague and confusing
I don't know what that means.
because I think that's a double negative, not unwound.
Okay, as the PMK for the LLC, was the transaction unwound?
What
Objection,
transaction?
vague and confusing.
The transaction whereby $250,000 was paid for the restaurant business, as you stated.
I have no knowledge that it was unwound.
Okay, all right. And Jeanette says in this voicemail that we have the right to hand the management to you. We can hand the entire management of the restaurant to you, including the management of the revenues. As the PMK for the LLC, why would Jeanette have the right after October 1st to hand management to Liel?
Objection, misstates the testimony and assumes facts not in evidence. Calls for a legal conclusion.
I was not the PMK at the time of this, so there's no way I can comment on it as the PMK.
Okay. And the voicemail goes on to state, we would have you run it, you get the money, but you're not officially owning it till we get this guy taken care of.
Slow down, slow down.
Okay.
We would have to run it.
We would have you run it. You get the money, but you're not officially owning it until we get this guy taken care of.
Thank you.
As the PMK for the LLC, do you know what is being discussed here?
Objection lacks foundation.
I was not the person most knowledgeable at this time, and I can't speak to this as that.
Okay. And then Jeanette goes on to say, but I would pull the money out just to be safe in regards to the green to gold or whatever company that you control that is not Jeanette's Edelweiss, okay? As the PMK of the LLC, are you aware that Jeanette Milio told me to close down the Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC accounts?
Objection misstates the testimony and assumes facts not in evidence. It's also outside the scope.
I was not aware, you had many conversations and emails with Jeanette and texts. I'm not aware of many of them.
Are you aware that the Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC accounts were closed?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence.
I don't know what you're talking about. When?
So as the PMK for the LLC, you're, anytime after October 1st, 2017.
Objection, the question is vague and confusing.
I thought I answered that we transferred the accounts to you.
I know, and what I'm getting at is that these assets that you transferred, you also told me to close. Do you know why we were being told to move our money? Do you
Again,
know
yes.
why, as the person most knowledgeable in the LLC?
No, you're trying to get me to answer as Jim Milio, and I will not do that. You've already discussed this with me in my prior deposition. I will not be tricked into answering as myself in a deposition that I've already given.
No
I was
one's
not
trying.
the PMK. Yes, you were. I was not the
Yeah,
PMK.
the PMK is here to answer questions within his knowledge or which were reasonably available. So please stop asking about other people.
I'm not asking about other people. I'm asking, as the PMK for the LLC, are you aware that there were liens on the bank accounts prior to October 1st, 2017?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence. But you can answer if you were aware. At what point in time? Right. I mean, I guess that's the problem. Are you asking him today, is the PMK aware that there were liens? Or are you asking whether Jim Milio knew that in 2017?
That's the issue I'm having.
Okay. I'm asking if the PMK of the LLC is aware that there were is aware today that there were liens prior to October 1st, 2017 on the bank accounts that were transferred. I'm asking if he's aware today.
My understanding is that any expenses that were owed by Jeanette's Edelweiss prior to the signing of the first title certificate would ultimately be taken care of by Jim and Jeanette. And any expenses afterwards would be that of Liel and EEG, is my understanding.
Okay. So, was the solution, as the PMK for the LLC, instead of paying those debts, was the plan to close the bank accounts down?
Objection as vague and confusing and unintelligible.
Well, no,
Are you asking whether they closed the bank accounts?
this is not a PMK question. This is a Jim Milio deposition question, and I'm not going to answer it on those grounds.
Okay. All right. LLC PMK 0563/2. This is an email that's titled regarding membership interest transfer issue. It is first from Liel to Jeanette on 11/7/2017 at 4:18 p.m. in response to an email received on 11/7/2017 at 3:39 p.m. from Jeanette's Edelweiss. Jeanette wrote that they received legal advice. My first question is, as the person most knowledgeable for the LLC, Do you know who was providing legal advice to, in regards to the membership interest transfer on November 7th or on or around November 7th, 2017?
This was a discussion that Jeanette had. I'm not sure who she spoke with.
Okay, and it says, as it relates to the transfer of membership shares, kindly be advised that to date you have not fulfilled your contractual obligation under our membership agreement. The lease transfer was due by October 15th. You failed to transfer the lease into your names as guarantors. The transfer of membership interest is not concluded until we are removed from the lease as guarantors. Is that statement true?
Objection. I think that's beyond the scope.
This has to do with the membership interest transfer.
Well, you're asking him if a email sent by Jeanette is true, and I don't think that's PMK territory.
Yeah.
You can try to answer it, but I also think it's vague and confusing.
I can't make a legal conclusion on a Jeanette email.
I'm sorry, start again?
I don't feel I can make a legal conclusion on an email by Jeanette.
Okay, as the PMK for the LLC, can you confirm that you are aware that this email was sent and it was signed by Jeanette and Jim Millio?
Okay,
I'm aware because I've
objection,
seen it.
objection. Please
Sorry, one
look
at
at
a time.
trying to signal if you can see me on the video here. Objection, it's overbroad in scope as to time. You're asking the witness to confirm as of today, as of 2017.
Yes, I'm asking him to confirm as the PMK today. Do you know that this was emailed to Liel and Kent on November 7th, 2017?
Well, I saw this in the documents that you sent. So I saw it then.
Is this a trustworthy email that was sent?
I can't.
Objection.
I can't validate that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Millio, whatever you're saying, I cannot hear.
Okay, I can't validate that this is a trustworthy email. I don't know if this email's been doctored or if it's the original email or if it's been altered in any way. I don't know.
Okay, why don't you take some time to review it and let me know if there's anything that you see that was doctored on this email.
Well, I can't
Listen, the
tell
PMK is not here to tell you that things are, I mean, he's already testified on this. So you're just harassing the witness with a question like that.
Okay, I'm going to ask another question. On this email, it states, we will require you to sign an acknowledgement that in the event you default on the lease, you will transfer the liquor license back to us and hand the restaurant back to us as well. Given these circumstances, you will not be receiving your money back, as we will need to remedy that situation that you would have caused at that time. My question is, as the person most knowledgeable for the LLC, you are aware that the LLC was in chronic default prior to October 1st, 2017, correct?
Objection argumentative calls for a legal conclusion. It's also overbroad in scope as to time. Do you want to try to clean up your question?
The restaurant was not in default to my knowledge.
Okay. This is LLC PMK 1063/2. This is a notice of payment default dated on February 2nd, 2017 to Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC for an outstanding amount of $13,154.99. As the PMK for the LLC, are you aware of this notice?
I'm aware that a notice like this was sent and we made the payment and continued operations.
Okay. All right, LLC PMK 1083/2. This is March 17, 2017. This is to Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC, and this is in regards to the lease, and it states that they please be advised this is an attorney that was retained for an outstanding balance of $21,875.71. And it talks about the tenant's default. Are you aware of this document?
I'm aware of that document, and all payments were ultimately made to Newberry Oaks, and the restaurant operations continued without incident, and the restaurant was never closed by the landlord the entire time we operated it.
Okay, that's fine. And this one is an, let me put this on the record. LLC PMK 1113/2. It's a notice of payment default on July 21st, 2000.
I'm sorry, hold on.
Sure, I'll go slow.
Repeat the Bates number again, please,
LLC PMK 1113/2.
and go ahead and proceed.
This is a notice of payment default on July 21st, 2017 to Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC with an amount outstanding of $11,298.37. Are you, as the PMK of the LLC, aware of this notice?
I'm aware of this notice and the fact that all bills were paid to the landlord.
Okay. And this one is LLC PMK 1133/2. It's a notice of payment default dated on August 25th, 2017 to Jeanette's Edelweiss with a default amount of $11,847.06. Are you aware, as the PMK of the LLC, of this document?
I'm aware of the document, and all payments were made, and the restaurant operated fully and functionally the entire time it was owned by Jim and Jeanette.
LLC PMK 1153/2. Another notice of payment default dated September 21st, 2017 to Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC with a total default amount of $11,443.92. Are you aware, as the PMK for the LLC, of this notice?
I'm aware of this notice, and it was ultimately paid. The restaurant operated without incident and was never closed by the landlord during the entire time it was operated by Jeanette and Jim Millio.
Okay. And as the PMK for the LLC, are you aware that if there's two monetary defaults within 365 days per the lease, that it is considered chronic default?
Objection, cause for legal conclusion. Assumes facts not in evidence.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer.
But are you aware of, and I can pull up the lease if you want. Would you prefer me pull up the article in the lease?
I'm aware that there's many things in the landlord agreement that they don't necessarily breach or cancel the agreement because of late payments. They were aware that in our first year of operations, we had a few struggles with cash flow, and all these legal notices were all sent, and we dealt with them and paid them. And they did not kick us out of the restaurant, as I would like you to remember. We operated it fully the entire time without the restaurant being closed for one day due to the landlord.
Due to what?
Due to the landlord.
Okay, this is LLC PMK 1013/2. This is from the website in the state of Delaware, Secretary of State, Division of Corporations. As the PMK for the LLC, are you aware that the Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC was canceled due to failure to pay tax on June 1st, 2018?
My understanding was that the tax was ultimately paid and the corporation was reinstated.
Okay, and who reinstated that corporation?
What do you mean?
Who authorized the revival of the entity?
I'm not sure, but I know that the tax was paid.
Okay. And do you know when that entity was revived?
I don't have the exact dates.
Okay. LLC PMK 13333/2. This is certified record from the state of Delaware. A certificate of revival was filed on the 25th day of February 2019 at 4:36 p.m. This was the original formation, and this was the revival. LLC PMK 1353/2. This is the certificate of revival of Delaware Limited Liability Company for Jeanette Edelweiss LLC. Can you tell me who filed this?
Well, the document says James Millio.
Okay. All right.
Can we take a short break, please?
Yes. Should we, do you want 5 or 10 minutes?
5 is fine.
Okay.
You know, can we take 10,
Yes.
Leo?
Yeah, I'd like
And okay?
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's take 10. Come back at 3:10.
The time is 2:57 PM. We are off the record.
So, all right.
Hold on, Kelly, you're muted.
One moment. The time is 3:12 PM. We are back on the record.
Okay, LLC PMK 0683/2. This is some document production produced from the Environmental Health Division, Rebecca Johnson, who dealt with a routine inspection at the restaurant location in April of 2018. As the PMK for the LLC, are you aware that the health permit to operate is non-transferable?
Action calls for a legal conclusion.
Yeah, I don't think I'm qualified to make a legal conclusion on that.
Okay. Do you have knowledge as the PMK for the LLC if the permit to operate ever went through a change of ownership?
To my knowledge, I do not think there was a change of ownership. I believe it stayed under Jeanette Edelweiss the entire time.
Okay. All right, let's do this one. All right, LLC PMK 1023/2. This is a email strand that started in August 7th. Sorry about that. Hold on. Let me see something real quick. Okay. LLC PM, it's a extension LLC PMK 1033/2. The email started on August 7th, 2018 at 1:41 p.m. From Gabriella Medford. As the PMK for the LLC, do you know who Gabriella Medford is?
I've heard her name, yes.
Do you know who she's employed by?
I believe she's with the property manager.
Okay. And did she inform Mr. Millio on this date of an outstanding balance of $1,699.80?
Was there another page on this? Or is this the only part?
Yeah, we will go up there, but let's stick on this page. Do you have
Well,
knowledge?
I don't know. I don't know if I want to speak to it unless I see the other part of it.
Okay. So then on August 13th, there's an email from Jim in reply to that email where he tells her Liel has been overseeing and managing the restaurant since October 1st, 2017. It would seem that all these charges except one are related to her. I will investigate further.
Okay, so, but the question is, why did you not make the payment in August to the landlord?
Why don't we let-
Why the landlord wrote to me? Is that the question?
That wasn't the question. So let's let Ms. Arad or the court reporter clarify what their question is.
Okay.
So the first question is, are you aware as the PMK for the LLC that Jamilio received an email from the landlord on August 7th, 2018 regarding the outstanding balance of $1,699.80?
Yeah, objection, it's vague and confusing. Again, the PMK wasn't in existence at this point, and he's obviously aware. It's up on the screen in front of him. So I'm not sure I understand. Objection, it's vague and confusing.
Yeah, I don't know if I can speak to it as PMK since it involves me as an individual and as a managing member.
Okay, you can be an individual and a PMK.
Rather than just argue it, just maybe if you rephrased it, okay, because you're asking the witness if he's aware of the exhibit that's in front of him,
Uh-huh.
but because it's in front of him, of course he's aware of it.
Okay.
So,
Okay, Gabriella tells Mr. Milio that the balance is for late fees and prior year tax and CAM for the year of 2017. And she tells him it was for which before you sold your business to the new operator. And she's saying she's asking for payment. Are you aware, as the person most knowledgeable for Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC, if this payment was made to Gabriella from this August 7th email? At or around the time of August 7th.
I don't know.
objection, it's vague and confusing. You had a great question until the end, because you're asking if this was paid on August 7th, same date as the email.
On or around. Do you know if this payment was made in August of 2018?
My sense is that this payment was made. I don't know if it was made in August of 18, but my recollection is that this payment was made to the landlord. I just don't remember the exact time.
Okay, do you remember what year it was paid?
I don't at this point.
Okay. Do you know if it was paid before October 31st, 2018?
I don't know if I can tell you right now.
Okay. Do you know if it was paid immediately?
I don't know.
Objection, vague.
I know my recollection is that the payment was made. I cannot tell you the exact date.
Okay, that's fine. All right. And okay. And here on August 13th, approximately a week later, Gabriella sends an email to Jim Milio. This one is LLC PMK 1023/2. And she clarifies to Jim that you and Jeanette are still the leaseholders and personal guarantors on the lease. So you are fully responsible for all monies owed. As of today, there's a new balance that includes the August rent. A demand letter went out to all parties. If payment is not received, they will proceed with further action. Are you familiar as the PMK for the LLC with this email?
Yes, because this is when you refused to pay the August rent. So yes, I'm very familiar with it.
Okay. And all right. So the demand letter included the prior payments, is that correct? Plus the new.
Plus what you didn't pay. Yes, plus what you didn't pay.
Right. Plus the rent in August. Is that true?
Yes, you did not pay the rent in August. That is true.
Right. And we're on August 13th, 2017. And so LLC PMK 1053/2 on August 14th, 2018, Jeanette and Jim Milio send a notice of intent to take over the premises located at 2160 Newberry Road, Newberry Park. Were Jim and Jeanette Milio, they didn't refer to us as Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC. Is that true?
What do you mean?
Objection, vague and confusing.
The letter refers to Liella Rod, Kent Craig Caruso, Green to Gold org. There's nowhere that's mentioning that this letter or notice is to Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC. Is that
Objection, secondary evidence rule. Document speaks for itself. What's the question?
Do you know, as the person most knowledgeable for the LLC, why Jim and Jeanette Milio had the right to send a notice of intent to take over the premises on August 14th, 2018?
Objection, vague and confusing. outside the scope.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Let's see.
I mean, this document was not sent by the corporation, and so it's outside the
Right.
scope of the PMK depot.
Okay, I'll accept that. Okay, this has to do with the assets of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC. This was sent on August 16th, 2018 at 3:36 p.m. It's bait stamped LLC PMK 1183-2. It's an email from Jeanette to Liel's attorney, prior attorney of record, I think another attorney, Jim Millio, Jeanette, Liel. It says that it's our understanding that your client is moving valuables out of Jeanette's Edelweiss. Furthermore, we will be contacting local law enforcement if items are being removed, as this would be considered stealing. Did Jim and Jeanette have rights to the assets of the LLC on August 16th, 2018?
Objection. It calls for a legal conclusion. And again, this is a document that's not sent by the LLC after a point in time in which the Milios were not managers of the LLC. So objection, it's outside the scope.
Let's see who's the managers of the LLC. This is LLC PMK 1163/2. This is a certified public record of the California Secretary of State, Statement of Information, LLC -12, filed on August 16th, 2018. It's filed by Jeanette's Edelweiss Management as the PMK for the LLC. For the statements of information category, are you familiar with this document?
I've seen it only in the records of the case.
Okay. And do you know how Jim Millio is Jim Millio a manager or a member as stated on this statement of information?
Objection. I mean, are you asking him what does the document say? Because again, we can all read. Why don't you just ask him a question?
Okay. Well, the question is, first, are the statements true?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know if Jim Millio was the manager or member on or around August 16, 2018?
Slow it down. Can you ask that again?
Do you know if Jim Millio was the manager or member on or around August 16, 2018 for Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And do you know who appointed Brandy Hernandez as the CEO of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC on August 16, 2018?
No.
Okay. All right. Now, this is not a certified copy. Oh, wait, maybe it is. Yeah, it is. Sorry. This is a certified copy from the Secretary of State Statement of Information. This is filed on, well, first it's bait stamped LLC PMK 1193-2. It was filed on October 11th, 2018. Are the statements on this statement of information true?
Objection. Lacks foundation. Calls for speculation.
Are you familiar with this document?
I've seen it as part of the discovery in this case.
Okay. And did you do any preparation to be able to answer questions about the statements of information per the notice for the PMK deposition today?
He's
I'm prepared
answered
to answer questions.
how many
I'm prepared to
times?
answer questions.
I'm sorry, Mr. Millie, your counsel is speaking. I cannot understand anything you're saying. So
I'll
all
withdraw
I
the
have is
objection.
he's answered how many times, and that was all I got.
Okay.
I'm prepared to answer questions if you have a question about this.
Okay. So as the PMK for the LLC, are the statements on this statement of information true?
I don't know.
Objection. Lacks foundation.
know if
Calls
they're
for
true or not.
speculation.
Please,
Do you?
hold on. I don't know, then objection lacks foundation, calls for speculation, and whatever you said after that, Mr. Millia, was lost.
I think he just said, I don't know.
Correct.
Okay, but I can't tell.
So do you have knowledge whether or not Jim Millio filed the statement of information as the PMK for the LLC?
I don't.
Okay. Do you know who would know?
I don't.
Okay, there's ghost
You know,
right.
I think anybody can file something with the Secretary of State, so I don't know.
Okay. So, okay. All right. And this is LLC PMK 1213-2. This was a ex parte application for appointment of receiver to appoint a receiver for the LLC. It was filed by Jeanette and Jim Millio's attorney on October 22nd. So about 11 days after that statement of information was filed. It claims that Jim and Jeanette have the right to the assets of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC. As the PMK for the LLC, do Jim and Jeanette have the rights to the assets of the LLC on October 22nd, 2018?
Objection misstates the evidence, asks for a legal conclusion outside the scope of the PMK category, because he's not a PMK at this point in time. And then you're asking him about a pleading that Mr. Millio's lawyer filed. So your question invades the attorney-client privilege. Do you want to try to rephrase?
I'm just asking a question as a PMK for the LLC. If Jim and Jeanette had any rights to the assets of the LLC after October 1st, 2017.
Calls for a legal conclusion.
Is this the document because you had stopped paying rent for several months?
Sure. Does it make Jim and Jeanette have the rights to the assets?
I'm just trying to understand. I'm just trying to understand what this is.
Yeah, and you're grossly mischaracterizing this document. Where does it say Jim and Jeanette have the rights to the assets?
Okay, so here plaintiffs have demonstrated their interest in the business.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one.
That doesn't say that Jim and Jeanette have the right to title to the assets.
Okay, so it's based on the grounds that Civil Code of Procedure empowers a court to appoint a receiver in a pending action between partners or
I'm
other.
sorry, you need to slow down when you're reading.
Sorry, jointly owning or interested in any property or fund on the application of the plaintiff or of any party whose right to or interest in the property or fund or proceeds thereof is probable, and where it is shown that the property or fund is in danger of being lost, removed, or materially injured. So the question, and I'm just using this as a document.
Right, but you've mischaracterized it, but I'll let you ask your question.
So my question is, as the PMK for the LLC, for any justification, and I'm not asking for the justification, but as the PMK for the LLC, did Jim and Jeanette have any right to the assets of the LLC after the title certificate was executed on September 30th, 2017?
Objection. That calls for an expert opinion from a lay witness. It calls for a legal conclusion. It calls for speculation, because you're teeing off your question about a pleading that was filed, and what you're really asking invades the attorney-client privilege. We object on that basis too. So, I mean, the PMK is not going to give you a legal conclusion. I mean, ask a factual question within his knowledge, and that's fair game. But the judge is going to decide the legal questions in this case.
Do you have knowledge of who had the rights to the assets of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC in October 2018?
Objection is vague and confusing.
You mean as the PMK?
Yes. As the PMK, do you have knowledge of who, what party would have the rights to the assets of the LLC in which you're the PMK for.
No.
Objection. The question's vague and confusing. It calls for
I-
legal
no.
conclusion.
I mean, this looks like because you stopped paying, I think Jim and Jeanette were trying to get a receiver in there so that the restaurant wouldn't fully close down. This was all a result of you stopping payments.
Okay, well, I'm not asking for the justification. I'm asking,
Okay.
I'm asking
But this
I'm
is
sorry,
why this
one at a
document
time,
exists.
please.
This is why the document exists.
okay. All right, so LLC PMK 1293 -2. This was produced by the Environmental Health Division. And it is an email that's sent from Jim Millio to Stephanie Paramo on November 29th, 2018. As the PMK for the LLC, do you know who Stephanie Paramo is?
Objection. This is outside the scope because the LLC was transferred at this point in time.
Did
So you're really asking questions of Jim Millio for the second time on this.
okay, so
And
I'll lay some foundation real quick. You already stated in the testimony that the health permit was always in the name of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC. Is that accurate?
That's my recollection.
Okay. And so is Stephanie Paramo your point person in regards to the permit to operate for Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC?
Well, objection.
now
I don't know that
you're
the
asking me
PMK
as
had a
Stop,
point
stop,
person.
Mr. Millio, please stop, let your counsel
Sorry,
finish.
sorry,
Objection, and then whatever was said was lost.
sorry.
I object to the form of the question. It's vague and confusing as phrased.
Please repeat your answer, because I didn't get any of it.
Please repeat the question.
The question is, for the Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC permit to operate, to sell food to the public, was Stephanie Paramo the supervisor for that permit with the Environmental Health Division?
Stephanie was one of the people that worked with the restaurant.
Okay. And on November 29th, 2018, did Jim Millio tell Stephanie, on behalf of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC permit to operate, that he had a dispute with the group that was managing the restaurant and is no longer working with them?
Objection. The document speaks for itself. You've already deposed Jim Millio about this, and you've deposed Stephanie Paramo about this.
Okay, well, I'm deposing the PMK for the LLC about this now. And
Well, yeah, but you're asking the PMK about something Jim did after the
asking
LLC was sold to you. So it's not fair game.
I'm asking the PMK if he has knowledge that Jim Millio is communicating with the health department on behalf of the Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC on November 29th, 2018.
I mean, here's the problem. He has knowledge today because you've got this email in
Yeah,
front of him.
Fine.
So it's not a probative question.
I think if he's going to be the PMK for the LLC, then it is.
Well, my objection stand. You ask your question, see if you can get an answer. I don't see it. I mean, is he aware of the email that you have put in front of him? I will stipulate that we can all see the email that you have uploaded that's in front of us.
Okay. And okay. All right. Okay, LLC PMK 13663-2. This is a statement of information filed with the California Secretary of State. It's Form LLC-12. It was filed on May 2nd, 2019. As the PMK for the LLC, in the category of the statements of information, the person most knowledgeable, are the statements made in the statement of information true?
I don't know.
Okay, is there anything that would help you know?
Well, as I said earlier, anybody can file a statement of information with the Secretary of State. So, I don't know who filed this. I don't know if it's 100% accurate. I don't know.
Can you confirm, just because it's unique that you are Jamilio, would you know if Jamilio filed it or not?
First of all, I think you asked the real Jamilio that question in his deposition.
I know, and that's why we're here today, because it was evaded.
And so now you've got Jamilio again. The answer is not going to be any different.
Okay, well, we might have to motion to compel on these things, or stipulate to them, whatever you want to do. I don't.
What is it? What is it that you want to compel? An answer that,
I
mean,
think
if the witness doesn't know the answer, he doesn't know the answer.
Okay. I think no matter what, these business records are going to be admissible because they're certified. So I'm not too about that, but
So I'm not too what?
worried about that. But
Yeah, well, we'll cross that bridge at the trial, Miss Arad. I mean, there's all that stuff, but that isn't today.
okay. All right. This is LLC PMK. I cannot read this. Hold on. Let me see. It's kind of 1513-2. This is the City of Thousand Oaks business license for Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC. As the PMK for the LLC, are you aware of the production of documents from the City of Thousand Oaks pursuant to a subpoena regarding the business license of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC being renewed in 2015, 16, 17, 18, and 19?
I'm going to object, attorney-client privilege, and instruct you not to answer what you're aware of, because I might have shared with you, because something what happened in this case is not discoverable. But if you want to ask about the actual documents, go right ahead.
All right. So as the PMK for Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC, who renewed the business license in 2018?
I'm not sure the answer to that.
And who renewed the business license in 2019?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. The record from the City of Thousand Oaks, LLC PMK 1553/2. Can you confirm that it does not show Liel Arad or EEG as a managing member?
No objection. Document speaks for itself. This is not his record. This isn't a record of the LLC.
Why
So we're
not?
not going to play games with it. So why don't you just ask questions? But he's not going to read it and tell you there is or isn't something in this document. It's not his document.
As the PMK for the LLC, are you aware that the business license would be sent to the email address info@Jeanette'sEdelweiss.com?
I'm sorry, stop. As the PMK for the LLC, are you aware that something, what?
Are you aware that the business license to renew for Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC would be sent to the email address info@Jeanette'sEdelweiss.com every year?
What is he aware today as the designated PMK?
Yes.
Objection,
Did not-
relevance.
I didn't know until I saw this document.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. LLC PMK 1613-2. Are you, as the PMK for the LLC, are you familiar with this document?
I've seen it as part of the evidence of this case.
Okay. Can you identify what it is?
You want me to read it?
No, you can identify like what it is. Like what kind of document is this?
Objection
The
lacks
limited
foundation.
liability company agreement
I'm
amendment. for
sorry, I
Jeanette
don't
Edelweiss
understand what you're
LLC.
saying. I don't understand what you're saying. Please read slowly.
It says limited liability company agreement amendment for Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC, amendment to the operating agreement.
Okay. Do you know, as the PMK for the LLC, who drafted this amendment?
I don't know for certain.
Okay. As the PMK for the LLC, do you know the intent of this amendment?
Same objection as prior half dozen times about intent. Vague, confusing, cause for speculation. Unintelligible. Do you want to rephrase your question a little bit?
I think it's a pretty straightforward question. Do you know, as the PMK for the LLC, what's the purpose of this amendment?
I know what the amendment says.
Okay, so was it now, well, do we know when this amendment was drafted?
I don't know exactly when it was drafted.
Okay, do you know what this is an actual amendment to specifically in the operating agreement?
Objection, vague and confusing.
I don't know the specifics.
Okay. All right, and so in this case, it purports to say all rights and liabilities of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC and its operating business shall be the responsibility of the new managing members starting from the date of transfer. Do you know what was the purpose of this amendment to put all the liabilities of Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC on Environmental Education Group, Kent Caruso, and Leela Rod?
Objection, misstates the evidence, calls for speculation, calls for legal conclusion.
I don't know.
Okay. Did you do you know why that there's no signature line for EEG or Liel or Kent to actually agree to this amendment?
I don't know that there's not a signature line. I'm only seeing one page. There may be
It's-
another page with signature lines.
It was produced as one. This is the actual LLC operating agreement, but it was produced by your counsel early on in litigation, and it was produced in a stack of papers. There was no second paper to the this particular batch stamped amendment.
But that doesn't mean there wasn't.
Just ask a question.
Okay, so did this amendment ever get signed? If you're the person most knowledgeable for the LLC, by Environmental Education Group, Kent or Leo?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. This was also produced by your counsel in litigation, in discovery. It's LLC PMK 1603-2. It's says, Liel, I spoke to Paulo. It's from Jeanette, and it CC's Jim, and it's about Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC in Delaware. And it says, I spoke to Paulo. He set up the entity and prepared the share transfer and change for you guys.
I'm sorry, hold on. I spoke to Paula and he prepared what?
He set up the entity and prepared the share transfer and change for you guys. Kindly contact Paulo at your convenience. As the PMK for the LLC, are you aware of Paulo assisting in this membership interest transfer transaction in any capacity?
I don't know.
Okay. Are
May
you
have, I don't know.
okay?
I'm sorry, I don't know. And then what?
He may or may not have. I don't know.
Do you know who would know?
Well, it looks like Jeanette wrote this email.
Okay. Do you
If it's an
believe
accurate
that?
email, if it's an accurate email, it looks like Jeanette wrote it.
Do you believe Jeanette might be the better PMK for the LLC in regards to the transfer of the membership interest and all the moving parts?
Ms.
No.
Arad, stop it.
No.
How many times do we have to tell you that Mr. Milio is our designated PMK? And that doesn't mean that he has carnal knowledge on every fact of the case.
LLC PMK 1623-2. As the PMK for the LLC, are you familiar with this limited liability company agreement for Jeanette's Edelweiss LLC?
Is this the original document? I don't, which one
Yes.
is this?
This
the
is
original?
the only document that I've ever received. If you want to take some time and look through it, I could export it to you.
Can I take her word for it? It's the original?
Council can make a proffer to you, and we can try to see if there's a question somewhere in there.
Yeah, you can let me ask me the question. I suppose that might help.
The only question is, at this point is there an operating agreement that is actually signed? As the PMK for the LLC, are you aware of an operating agreement that was signed by the managing members?
I thought there was a signed one. I don't recall, but I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. All right. Stop the share. Do you guys mind if we take 5 minutes for me to get myself organized for the next
Are you still planning on finishing today?
I'm hoping to. I want to kind of get my head together on anything that's important, and but I'm not saying, you know, the statements of information are
I'm
still.
sorry, I don't understand. Something is beeping going.
Do you want me to go off record?
Yes.
The time is 3:48 PM. We are off the record.
All right. I just.
The time is 4:14 PM. We are back on the record.
Okay, we are going to finish for today, but I reserve the right to continue this deposition. But in good faith, we are going to meet and confer to see if we can stipulate to authenticity only in regards to some of the documents. And if we can, we will be concluding the deposition at that point.
Right, and we agree to that, although we also reserve our right to object to having to come back without prejudice.
All right.
The exhibit, Ms. Arad?
Yeah, what do I do with that? That I'm putting on the record Exhibit 68, which is titled email saying title certificate. It's not bait stamped, so there is no bait stamp, but it is a email string that we reviewed in the deposition.
Great, thank you. For the record, who would like copies, if anyone?
I'm having one copy.
You get
Not
one
at this
on that.
time.
Not at this time.
All right. Are we ready to close the record?
No, hang on just a second. This is per code. So who's going to get the link for the deponent's review, him or his counsel?
That would be me, Mr. Ingber.
Okay, and we can go off the record. I have one spelling question for the deponent.
Okay, this concludes today's video deposition of PMK Jim Melio. The original of today's proceedings will remain in the custody of Atkinson Baker Incorporated. We are going off the record at 4:16 PM.
All right, everybody, have a great weekend.